And as you can see, I'm Brooke Bownes, the Breakthrough Queen, who helps you to break through your blocks and barriers that are holding you back from being the person you really want to be. And I'm going to let Mark introduce himself, and then we're just going to have a conversation and see where it goes and have a chat and just connect. Because I actually realised that me and Mark have spoken, but it was back in March 21. It's like I realised it was that far back. But so we haven't spoken for a while, like kind of face to face, even though it's online as such. So I'm looking forward to chatting with Mark and catching up. And I do know what he does, but I'm going to let him introduce it because obviously he can do it a lot better than I can. So over to you, Mark. Welcome.
Thank you, Brooke. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely to be here. Yeah, I'm just an ordinary business guy, really, who worked his way through some large businesses in fairly senior positions and some small businesses as well, primarily around sales and marketing, but had a bit of a sideways move into something called Six Sigma for 2.5 years. So at the end of 2005, I took voluntary redundancy from Caterpillar and said, well, what do I want to do? What do I really love? And it's kind of evolved over the years, but I wanted to do something that linked with my martial arts background. And that took me into working in conflict in particular, in lots of different shades and forms. And I then got very much involved in speaking and associate training, and that helped expand things. I learned lots of different things, helping other people deliver their material. And then I came across something called havening, which was quite by accident. And it's all about helping people take away things from the past. I mean, you talk about breakthrough, and it's very much to allow anybody to break through barriers that might be in their place, for whatever reason. So it could be heavy trauma, or it could just be a difficult upbringing, which you wouldn't identify as trauma, but constant sort of challenges. And so that's what I do. I empower people to be the very best they can be. And that comes from a few different angles. And I've got some really good experience to bring to bear. And I work one-to-one, but I also train people how to help other people as well, which I really adore doing, because it's like having your little children out there sort of, doing great work. And it's not my theory. It's something that comes from a guy called Dr. Ron Rudin. And it's just helping him pass out this wonderful modality that is brilliant for coaching. It's brilliant for therapists. It's anything to do with emotion. So that's kind of what I do. The emotional side of things I can help people with.
That's brilliant. And we've got a few people on watching. So if anybody has got any questions while the show's on or afterwards, me or Mark will come back in and answer them. So I'm sure some people will have some great questions about havening. So do you sort of like help people of a certain age, or does it vary from different age ranges? Or
I tend to work with middle-aged people in general, because that's when people kind of realize they're stuck. But I love to work with young people. In fact, I've become a director of a CIC called Heart Shaped Decisions, which is focused on young people and for their self-esteem and confidence. But actually, havening applies from the very young all the way through to the elderly. So I've worked with all of those different groups. And the types of people could be very high-level chief executives through to people at the start of their career just don't believe they can achieve anything. And you take away the roadblocks for them. And I've recently been working with neurodivergent people and helping those who are specialists in that area to really move things forward. And there's a few little niches I'm getting involved in, like I like helping veterans and military, for example, where I have some personal connections there. And it's just great to see that you can start again. Wherever you've been, it's possible to start again. And that's what I love about taking this thing forward and just helping people be the best they can be.
Absolutely. And one of the things I always say is our past doesn't have to define us. We can actually change and do the things we actually want to do. If we can kind of think about it and think that's what I'd love to do, then we're capable of achieving it, as long as we get those roadblocks or barriers, whatever you want to call them, out of the way. So we are in a very similar field in that response.
Absolutely. Now, the reason I'm stepping up is because I'm just getting a book off my shelf because of what you've just said. Havening is based on, you can't read this, but it says, when the past is always present. And that's what it's all about. It's about not allowing traumatic experiences, even if you don't identify them as traumatic, but not allowing prior uncomfortable experiences to guide you in an unhelpful way into the future, because that's what they're designed to do. It's a biological thing, and havening is based on neurobiology, and we reverse the encoding process that got you to where you are now and take you back to where you were before it happened. So it's just a liberating, lovely thing to be able to do.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm quite open about my childhood. It was quite traumatic. And often people come to me and say, well, I haven't had the trauma that you had in your childhood, Brooke. But sometimes somebody can just say a sentence to you as a child and it can stick. And I remember a client, and actually talk about it in my book I wrote about breaking the cycle of self-sabotage, where she believed that she was useless at maths just because when she was 7, she was doing a maths sum on the blackboard, and the maths teacher threw the rubber at her, because she is back then in the 70s. Maths teachers did that, or any teacher.
I've experienced that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like she was so embarrassed and so emotional at the time. She just thought, that's it, I'm useless at maths. Because as children, we don't have that critical faculty to think maybe the teacher had a bad morning, maybe he had a flat tire, maybe, he had an argument with their partner or whatever. Yeah. We just think, oh, okay, that's what I am. And then she carried that through all of her life up until her 50s, when she wanted to go for promotion and she needed to take a maths exam. And she was just in bits. So she called me in, said, can you help me? I need to get through this block about maths. And she was very clever and she could do maths, but she believed that she couldn't because of that one sentence that was told to her when she was 7. So for 43 years, she'd carry that with her. Yeah. And it was quite ironic, really, because she had to do a maths and an English exam. And I said, well, do you want some help with your English as well? She went, no, I'm good with my English. And it was quite comical. She phoned me up a couple of days later when she'd done her exam. She said, I've passed my maths and failed my English. I should have probably took you up on that opportunity. But she said, I was just so amazed how the difference is of changing that belief about actually that was just what that teacher said. It wasn't actually the truth, but I made that my truth by thinking about that constantly and making it a belief. And that's, as you know, how we form those things. And so we can change how we've been. And it's amazing that there's so many different techniques out there. I mean, I use a thing called brain spotting. I don't know if you've heard about brain spotting.
Yeah, I've trained some people to do brain spotting.
Yeah, it's really, really powerful. Again, it's just another different modality to use, and I absolutely love it. It's been a game changer.
Yeah, that example that you gave of the woman having had the chalk or the whatever it was that was thrown at her. In havening, we would look at that and say, well, that was a specific event. So it's an event that is to a level traumatizing. The meaning was, I've lost my ability to do maths, maybe I'm not clever, that type of thing. And the landscape of her brain, we look at that in assessing whether it's an area to work on or otherwise. Perhaps there were some other things going on. Kids were laughing at her as well. She'd been falling out with the best mate at school that particular day, or something was going on at home. And then she couldn't get away. And we use something called inescapability. You couldn't get away from that situation because it's very clear what the rules are in the classroom. You do what the teacher says. So you have to stand up and take it. And so Emily is what I've just described to you, which is a fundamental part of havening, and you learn as a trainer, as a practitioner, how to use that. And something called CASE, which is how you cognitively understand things, the autonomic response of your body when you think back to that or something that triggers it. And then that could be heart rate, it could be all sorts of different things. And then somatic, where you are with your body as well. So from a posture point of view and from a pain point of view, maybe, and the emotion that you're feeling. So it's very systematic the way we work in havening. And it's just beautiful, because what you described about an incident in the classroom, a skilled certified havening practitioner will probably get rid of that in about a quarter of an hour. If it's an isolated thing. If it's a lot more complex, then it'll take longer, of course. But if it's a one-off, and sometimes people do just present one-offs, things that there's just one thing that's in the way, and you get rid of that, whoa, they fly.
Yeah. I have to have people come to me and say, well, I've had no trauma in my life, and my parents were wonderful. And I say, it's not about blaming your parents, because things happen. It could have been a child in the playground. It could have been like that example of a teacher being in a bad mood, or not, their personalities clashing or whatever it is. It's not about blaming anybody. It's how we feel right now and what we want to do to change it so we can move forward in our lives. And it's great that we've got all these different modalities that we can use to do those things as well. It's like, it's a game changer for my guys. It was a game changer for me, understanding that actually those emotions that we had from like our childhood can actually be affected in a way in our adulthood, but we can actually change them. So we can actually think, okay, that actually just happened in my childhood. I can leave it there and move forward and do the things that I want to do, which is, if I can empower people like yourself, how you're passionate about it, it's amazing to feel that, thinking we've got somebody who thinks they couldn't do things, but actually now they're starting to achieve it, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the encoding process that we learn about, the scientific part of havening, is that you have little receptors in the brain that pass on a signal. It's like, oh, you need to feel rubbish. You need to feel, chronic pain. Your body needs to respond in a certain way that might be unhelpful. But it just comes from a sensory input that triggers you, taking you straight back to the origin of the original trauma or the experience, if you like. And so with havening, you remove the receptors that send the signal. So it stops the signal being sent. So you don't feel the emotion or the need to run away and get the bodily responses that aren't very helpful sometimes. Just the same with phobias. Phobias are just another form of traumatization. So once you get to the root of an issue, you can get rid of it very quickly. And actually, even if you don't know what the root is, you don't know where it comes from, we can use different other forms of havening to get in there and flush it out effectively. So it's just really versatile and sits alongside whatever other skills and expertise you've got, whether it be, you talked about brain spotting, but I've worked with people who are skilled in NLP or EFT, TFT, EMDR, CBT.
All the letters.
Yeah, absolutely. All the hypnotherapy, and more recently, I've been working with some people who work with Reiki and some really interesting stuff around crystals and all sorts. I'm very open-minded. If you can't prove to me that it doesn't work, I'll go, okay, fair enough. And I'm, happy to report that all of the people that I work with, they just introduce it alongside what they do, and it makes them faster, gentler, and just more comprehensive clear outs. So it just works really well with other stuff as well.
Yeah, it is great that it can complement other things. So, just to be, because we're having a conversation and connecting and chatting, what do you love to do for fun, Mark?
I love to be active. So I mentioned about the martial arts. I don't actively go to martial arts anymore. I stopped that in 2007, but I still teach self-defense. But I love running. I was swimming this morning, for example. I would be going to Pilates tomorrow night, but I'm going to a jazz club. Well, actually, I'm going to the Birmingham Conservatoire to hear some jazz with a friend of mine who's really into jazz. But I've started doing weight training, which I never thought I would do. Last time I did that was when I was sort of 18, really. So I've become fitter that way. So I like running, cycling in the summer, and just keeping active generally, like walking, beauty spots. Love my music. Music's always been a really big thing for me. And music and just keeping active is kind of my thing, primarily.
Yeah, I've just had a nice little text from my doctor saying that I'm eligible to have a free NHS health check for dementia, kidney disease, heart failure, stroke, and all those sorts of things. And it actually got me thinking. It's like, yeah, and I'm pretty fit and active, but actually I need to like up it again, because I'm going to be 58 next week, and it's like, okay, well, I'm 2 years off 60. You need to like think about keeping your muscles strong and keeping your bones and that strong as well. So it's like weight training is something that I'm also, getting into, because it is important to us, because to keep those muscles strong so we can keep being mobile. I mean, I've got 9 grandchildren, and my goal is to keep being active up until I've got great grandchildren when I'm in my 90s, but if I'm making my bones and muscles strong, I'm not going to be able to do that. So
I had a funny experience yesterday. I went to the gym in the morning, and I always do the monkey bars whenever I go to the gym. That's the first thing I started, because I was, as a kid, didn't think twice about it, going across. But I thought, if I'm going to the gym, I'll do the monkey bars. And first time I did it, I put one hand out and slipped off and thought, well, that was a bit rubbish. And then I thought, well, have I got slippy hands? No, I didn't have slippy hands. I was just rubbish at it. So next time I made sure my hands were really dry, and I managed to do 2, and then I slipped off. I thought, well, okay, I'll set myself a target. I'm going to go all the way across within 2 months. Now, I smashed that, I'm pleased to say.
Well done.
And I did that because I look at my dad, who is he's in his 90s, and he hasn't got much upper body strength now, understandably. But I just thought I never want to get to the situation where I can't do too much stuff when I'm older. And so that's the preparation for me. And the funny thing yesterday was I went on the monkey bars, and I always chat to the cleaner at the gym. And as I was going past, she went, "Gladiators." Okay.
I'll take that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a go at that, actually. But in fact, a friend of mine, he's in the, what's it called? Hunted series on Channel 4.
Oh, yeah.
A friend of mine is one of the hunters. And,
right.
And he said, you ought to go for that. You're a bit of a ninja. Why don't you do it? And I'm like, I might apply. It might be quite good fun. Probably never get on the program, but you can but apply.
Well, my inspiration is my husband's gran, who was 100 in October.
Oh, wow.
And a couple of years ago, so she was probably 92, 93. I'd been out in the garden trying to cut down a bit of a branch that was about that thick. And I thought, I can't do this. I'm just going to have to get somebody to help me sort it out. Go to see her, and she's on her own, busy sawing through a branch like that thick at like 92. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be beaten by a 92-year-old. I need but she keeps fit. She does that sort of thing and keeps going. And she's 100 and she still goes outside and does her garden. And she's got a TV in her front room. And we were just chatting once, and I said, do you watch much TV? And this was a couple of years ago. She went, oh no, that's for old people. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not sure. She said, yeah, you youngsters, she said, if you sit and watch too much TV, you're going to get set in your ways and your bones aren't going to be healthy. I quite like the fact she thinks I'm a youngster, but I'll take that. But it's true, because she doesn't sit still very often. She's constantly going and keeping her muscles and her bones going and keeping them flexible, which is like, so she's like a real inspiration for me. I think if I go to do something, I think, oh, that's a bit difficult. Actually, would Gran do it? Yeah, keep going. It'll build your muscles and build your bones up. Yeah,
good on you, Gran. I mean, my mum and dad used to live in this apartment, and they had the top apartment, and there's a lift there. And my dad would always take the lift, and Mum would always go up the stairs. And that's what I will be doing, and just making sure I keep active. It's a bit like when I sort of wipe down the shower afterwards, so that you don't have all the dried sort of droplets on the screen. And when I do that, I bend my legs when I'm doing it, so I'm not just doing it with my back. I'm actually going up and down with legs, just little things like that. I think you can, just walking rather than jumping on the bus, taking the car. I'm lucky enough to live in a village where I can walk in to get various things done, and I really feel uncomfortable if I drive in. I usually justify it if I'm going on somewhere else afterwards. It's the only way I can do it, really, unless I'm in a real rush and have to get somewhere before it closes. But then I'll take a bike.
I'm just the same. I mean, I live in a small town, and I had my lunch before this call, and I thought, well, I'm going to walk down and get a few bits, and it's the sunshine, and it's just nice to walk out in the sunshine. But I do things like, while I'm waiting for the kettle to boil, instead of scrolling through my phone now, I'll do press-ups off the work counter and things like that. Because you can do little things throughout the day that actually helps you without having to think, okay, right, I need to stop, I need to go get dressed in my gym gear, I need to go to the gym. If you do go to there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But if people are thinking, oh, well, that's all right, keeping fit, but I haven't got time to spend 2 hours going to the gym, getting ready and getting back and getting changed. But you can do stuff throughout the day to keep fit. And I mean, another thing I do, if I do go shopping in the car, I will park as far away from the door as I can, so I've got to walk even further.
With your heavy bags.
Actually, because it's like lifting them, Sometimes Simon must want to say, do you want a hand with that? I'm like, no, it's good powerlifting for me, I'm fine, thanks. He's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine, sort of thing. So I once heard a PT say to somebody, the best thing you can do for your gran is not to offer to carry her shopping, because it'll help with their muscles and their bones. I thought, that's quite true, really, if you think about that. Because if you see somebody, an older person, let me help you with shopping, but actually you're not doing them any favors, because it's good for their bones and their muscles.
Unless they're going to fall over with the weight and they're exhausted. That's the exception. But I agree with that. Yeah, I've just started trying Pilates. I've been going for about a month now, and I'm embarrassed to say that I can't do a sit-up properly without sort of rolling myself forward. And the way you do it in Pilates is you do it kind of using the muscles one at a time, moving forward. And I've talked to the instructor and I said, look, are my feet just not very heavy or something? Because I'm reasonably fit and I thought I had reasonable core strength, but clearly not. And she said, well, just try a little bit at a time. Have a look at the online exercises that there are. So that's my task this week, actually, to, in between making a coffee and stuff like that, I do that sort of stuff as well. I'll do a press up or a sit up sometimes, but I need to do that a bit more often. So you've inspired me to do a bit more of that, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I've done yoga and stuff, and I actually put a post on about when I got this nice little text from my doctors, and I said, what things do people do to help strengthen their muscles and the core and stuff? And quite a few people actually suggested Pilates, but I've never actually tried that. So that is something I'm going to look into, because I think it's trying those things and finding things that you enjoy doing as well, because you're more likely to do them more often if you actually do get some sort of enjoyment out of them as well.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I'm enjoying it particularly, if I'm honest, at the moment, but it's something I can do. It's only about 45 minutes. I'd prefer to do something longer, in fact, but I know I need to develop my flexibility. When I used to do karate all the time, I was very flexible and could stretch, and touch bits of me I never thought I was going to be able to touch again. And it's kind of, I want to get back to that level of flexibility. I think that's probably unlikely because it's quite a few years since I did karate, but at least I can strive for that. And,
I remember once I was out and I saw this lady who was in her 80s and she was quite sprightly, and she stopped and I ended up chatting to her, as I tend to chat to all sorts of people. And I said, what helps you to keep so fit? And she had this most amazing accent. She went, my dear girls, she said, just like that. I'm sure she must have been an old school teacher or something. She said, stretching. And she promptly stretched down and touched her toes. I was like, we were in the middle of the high street. It's quite comical, really, looking back. And she said, think about it, my dear girl. She said, how often do you see a cat or a dog wake up and not stretch? Because they know how to keep flexible.
Well,
make sure you
stretch. Bit of advice, yeah.
And I was like, oh, and ever since that, I when I wake up in the morning, I make sure I always do some stretches. And like once I've been sitting on a chair, I'll just make sure, even if I'm doing that, and I'll just stretch, because it just feels so good to like stretch. And it's like, yeah, she's quite right. I thought, well, if that's what keeps her flexible, I'm going to follow her lead. But yeah, it was quite comical how she just came out with it. Just stretch, my girl. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Nice bit of advice. I think there are so many little things in life that you can do that just help so much. You may not feel as though they do at the time, but they do. I mean, one thing I'm very keen to do is get people to just self-haven if they feel a bit upset about things, just to down-regulate. And all you have to do is that, or that, or that, and you'll start to down-regulate. It won't take the problem away. You need a certified practitioner to help you do that, maybe, but it'll just down-regulate you. And, I invite anybody to come along and just try it, on a free intro that I do all the time, because it's so easy to learn and how to do that, and just stop panic attacks in their tracks. Just feel better. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to?
Absolutely, yeah. I suppose it's very similar to, like, they say it's really good for your heart rate if you've got a dog or a cat and you stroke them. It's like that's calming stroking sensation, isn't it? So,
well, you're generating delta waves when you do that.
Yeah.
And that's what we use in havening, because with little children, for example, sometimes it's a bit alien kind of doing this. So you say, well, get your teddy out and stroke your teddy. And you're activating the receptors on your fingertips and on your palms, which generate these delta waves, and all the lovely neurochemicals come with that, like serotonin and oxytocin and GABA. And you just feel better immediately. So there are lots of these little tips and tricks. Meditation and mindfulness, they're all great. With Haven, if you take it a little stage further and work on the root issue, it won't come back. So you can either put a sticking plaster on it, or you can heal it immediately. And
Well, that's an absolutely fantastic note to end on. I think, like, we've been here like nearly 30 minutes. So thank you very much. It's been really interesting. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for those watching. And if you're watching on the replay, like I said, if you've got any questions, Sarah said amazing tips. So yeah, thank you for that comment. I really appreciate that. And thank you for enlightening us about havening, Mark. I know how passionate you are about it, and it's really great to hear you talk about it. And if anybody wants to get in contact with Mark, and wants to try it out, feel free to.
Yeah, absolutely. Be very welcome to. Yeah. Thanks ever so much, Brooke. And we'll catch up again soon, I hope.
Take care. We'll do. Bye for now. Bye.
Bye. Bye.